Ascending Forward, message number 21. Conversations with the collective consciousness of the starseeds from Earth. Part 3. Taygetan sand clock pilots. Approximately 1 million years ago, some ancient Pleiadian cultures completed their spiritual cycle through the densities. They were ready to return back to Source. However, they asked the question, is there more? Today we are on the tail end of Is There More? Sand clock is a Pleiadian term. It is a symbol for the passage of time. In Taygetan culture, on the Pleiades, sand clock pilots time travel and are regarded as decay. The sand clock pilots have had many lives. They know who they are, and they are in service. They want to help everyone because they know that everyone and everything is a part of them. The sand clock pilots travel in a Suzy craft to navigate the universe and journey up and down timelines. This craft is a small starship, is only ever piloted by Pleiadians, and can only fit one pilot at a time. The logo for Red Bull is the same symbol on the Pleiadian Suzy craft, 2 black bulls on a silver sphere. So the Cabal have taken the sand clock pilot logo of high morality, ethics and strength and used it for their agenda. The bull is the sign of Taurus and the Pleiades is in Taurus. The Pleiadian sand clock pilots are well known for travelling all over the universe and jumping up and down timelines. They can travel along a timeline, see a negative outcome, and return to the present to change the outcome. They may then appear to people in dreams or communicate somehow to change the negative timeline. Or they insert the tiniest change that may seem insignificant, however it sets into motion a slightly different timeline. Over a period of time, that tiny change that is inserted into a timeline can amount to a significant shift, and this shift can place them onto a whole different timeline somewhere else. The timeline that they were on still exists, so now there is a new fork, and both timelines are operating at the same time. If they are on one timeline in the fork, they can adjust the frequency of their starship to the other timeline and jump. The sand clock pilots have high morality and ethics, which is necessary because they can influence timelines as they are doing on Earth today. A sand clock pilot can jump along any timeline and speak to another version of itself in another timeline. The other version may be further advanced, however, may be experiencing a different reality. And then, by agreement, the sand clock pilot can bring back that other version of itself into the now avatar. This is called a walk-in. Some walk-ins have full awareness of who they are and others do not. However, they bring with them a heightened level of inquiry that accelerates their conscious expansion while also assuming that they are the avatar's experience. There are many of these walk-ins on Earth today, and they are the starseeds. You can think of timelines as though they are thousands of movies all running simultaneously side by side. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end, but they are all deterministic, meaning there is no free will. This is because they are a frequency. Your free will means that you can choose which timeline you want to be on. Whatever your frequency, created by your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, is the timeline that you will be on. Time slippage and skeletons in space. Pleiadians are renowned for their adventuring, and sometimes there are skeletons found in sand clock starships, and they are found all over the universe. The pilots can sometimes die in a Suzy craft, leaving their skeletons in the Suzy craft, and because of time slippage, they get stuck on a timeline or simply lost. Timelines are frequencies. A starship is a frequency. The pilot is a frequency. Every time a pilot makes a timeline jump, they are changing a timeline because jumping through space can artificially change the frequencies of the starship that is jumping, the timelines that the ship is jumping from, and the timeline that the ship is jumping to. When there is a change in frequency of the starship jumping to a destination that has a different frequency, you change time, and there is time slippage. For example, the time difference in an Andromedan biosphere and a Pleiadian star system, because they are in a different location in our galaxy, causes a time slippage. The time slippage may be minutes or hours, days, weeks, months, or perhaps even imperceptible to the mind, but not to the AI computers that are the consciousness of the Suzy craft that controls the ship to jump from one location to another. When a sand clock pilot jumps timelines, managed by the AI on the craft, time slippage is always a major factor. So to clarify, when jumping from point A to point B in Earth terms, you need 4 components which we can call dimensions. The first 3 give you physical location in space, length, width, and depth. The 4th component is time. This is what the quantum computer in a starship calculates. When jumping along timelines, the computer on the starship has to dial in the time of the original departure. It then looks at the frequency of the destination timeline and modifies that timeline by adding the energy field of the ship and its contents, being the pilot. To return to the point of origin, the computer has to calculate the time where you are, along with the timeline where you are going, and also needs to allow for time slippage. A problem exists where there are multiple time jumps, because the computer has to compute multiple time slip factors. There is the original point of departure, the many calculations of the timeline jumps throughout the galaxy, and of course the calculations of the starship and its contents for each timeline jump. After several or many time jumps, the original point of departure in time can be lost and there is no way home. In this case, when the pilot dies, the soul of the Pleiadian sand clock pilot finds their way back to the Pleiades, where they can incarnate again. Timelines on Earth today. Without time there is no experience. However, time is fluid and is dependent upon the perception of its viewer or observer. And in this case on Earth today, it is difficult to measure time in the collective sense as being a constant, because as the viewer's consciousness expands, time also changes, making it relative to that consciousness. Most of the galaxy is in 5D time, so there is a commonality with time that is experienced in a similar way. Time is slightly different for each civilization because of all the different frequencies that are involved, and that difference in frequency is called time slippage. The slippage in time between, say, the Pleiades and Earth 3 years ago was 2.5 Earth days relative to 1 Pleiadian day. A way of understanding that is that the Pleiadians are in a 5th density and the Earth is in a 3rd density. The disparity is proportional to a difference in frequencies of 3D to 5D. Today, however, that disparity between the Pleiades and the Earth is more than 5 days. In other words, what is happening on Earth is becoming less relevant to the rest of galactic time, and that is due to time slippage. However, the reason that it is less relevant is because the 3D Earth experience is coming to an end, while the new 5D frequency is becoming a frequency match to the higher 5D frequency. Many species cannot even find 3D Earth now, and it is only locatable in many instances to those who are involved with what is going on. This is why it is so important for us to use our free will and urgently do our inner work so that we can ascend to the new Earth and the higher frequencies. Tiwana Tawa Tiawa.